We have a series to decide MVP. The best player in the league is on a team that can't make a single shot and can't stop crashing out on them. A series so physical that people are starting to think that the NBA is trying to get a team to lose. One player that is trying to injure a superstar and can't stop fighting people, and another player who was written off and called overrated came back and made everybody pay. The NBA playoffs have been the most crazy it's ever been, and this video would be way too long to cover all of it in just one video, so stay tuned for part 2. With that being said, let's begin. Let's head over to the West, where we had a very intriguing matchup between the 2-seeded Houston Rockets and the 7-seeded Golden State Warriors. The Warriors have been a dominant team over the last decade, winning a total of 4 championships since 2015. They have a 2-time MVP winner, record holder in most threes in a season, and the man who carried the United States to a gold medal in the Olympics, Steph Curry. However, since their last championship, they lost to the Western Conference Finals to the Lakers. The next season, they barely made the play-in tournament and lost. Traded Klay Thompson, and this year was looking more of the same. They were in 9th place with a measly 25-25 record in a stacked Western Conference. The Warriors, knowing this, made a huge splash at the trade deadline, acquiring Jimmy Butler. The Warriors went 23-7 with Jimmy Butler, which was good enough to get them a 7 seed in the playoffs. They would play the Houston Rockets, who had a rough last few years. Ever since the James Harden trade, the Rockets have lost 261 games, not making the playoffs a single year. However, this year has been different. They have breakout years from young players, Amen Thompson and Alperen Sengun, making good additions, getting Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks, leading them to a 52-30 record, getting a 2 seed. The Rockets were mainly known for their physicality and defense, and in the playoffs, they would turn the intensity up a lot. In Game 1, their strategy was clear. Stop Steph Curry, especially from the three-point line. The Rockets on defense would hug, grab, and push Curry on every single possession. This would work early on as Curry went 0 for 3 at the three-point line to start the game, and the Rockets would take the lead. And this is until Steph had a different approach, driving to the basket, which worked well for the Warriors. They would take a convincing lead in the second quarter as Houston only scored 13 points that entire quarter. During the rest of the game, the Rockets still tried this defensive strategy of hugging Curry on defense, and this didn't stop him.
Throw up a shot. Oh,
are you kidding me?
Geometrically, that should not have happened. Wow, what a shot.
He put up some insane shots, followed by Jimmy Butler's good performance that would give the Dubs a convincing 95-85 victory. After the game, Warriors player Quentin Post said, "It felt like we came out of a war and were ready for any physicality they bring." However, the Warriors might have not been ready for this. With just over 2 minutes left of the first quarter, Butler jumped up for a rebound and Amen Thompson tripped and went under Butler, causing him to land very awkwardly. He had to leave the game because of this. People were questioning if this was intentional or not. Fans across the league had mixed reactions to if it was dirty or not, but for Warriors fans, it was a very one-sided debate. One Warriors fan said Thompson deliberately went to undercut Butler and the Rockets resorted to taking their best players out to win. Another fan said, "If Thompson has 1,000,000 haters, then I'm one of them. If he has 1,000 haters, I'm one of them. If he has 10 haters, I'm one of them. If Thompson has 1 hater, then that is me. And if he has 0 haters, I'm dead." Draymond Green said after the game that he thought it was intentional. Regardless of what people think, this only got a common foul. The Rockets head coach Ime Udoka said soon after this, quote, "Keep playing through the contact, they're not going to call anything." For the rest of the game, the Rockets would dominate, cruising to a 109-94 victory. In Game 3, it would go from the Rockets playing very physical defense to the Rockets actually trying to injure someone. With Jimmy Butler out for this game, all eyes were on Steph Curry, who would be guarded by Dillon Brooks, who might be the dirtiest player in the NBA. Steph injured his finger before the series, and everyone, Dillon Brooks included, knew this. Early in the first quarter, Steph would shoot a 3, and Brooks would put his hands up, and only after he shot it, he ran right through him and his hand. He would continue playing physical with a few cheap shots, and before the first half even ended, he already had 4 fouls. Late in the fourth, it was a close battle, and Brooks did not want Curry to come alive in the clutch. So Steph shot a 3, and by now the ball was long gone. And as Steph puts his hands down, Brooks takes not 1, but 2 swipes at his injured finger. Brooks, in an interview after the game, basically admitted that this was all on purpose. But after this, the Warriors came alive as they would go on a 17-4 run in a span of 8 minutes. For a Game 7. Houston would try to be just the 14th team ever to come back from a 3-1 deficit, and the Warriors just had to hold on. But the Warriors did not look good. At halftime, Curry only had 3 points, Butler only had 8 points, Podziemski had 5 points, Draymond had 10 points, Kevon Looney had 3 points, and nobody else on the bench scored, and they would be losing by 13. And that is without Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield dominated and had 22 points in the first half alone, and the Warriors would have a 12-point halftime lead. The Warriors would maintain this lead, and Hield would have 33 points, and Rocket stars Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks only had 8 points. And without Hield, the Warriors would have lost by 19. But due to his strong performance, the Warriors would win by 14 and advance to the next round. The Warriors' win proved that they were one of the most dominant teams in the NBA. But perhaps the most dominant team coming into the playoffs was the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavs have been decent in the past 3 years, but they lost in the first round of 2023, then in the second round of 2024, and they've never been a huge threat in the East. That was until this season, when they would explode onto the scene, having a 15-0 start to the season and going 64-18, securing the 1 seed. They dominated the Miami Heat in the first round, sweeping them and winning all 4 games by an average of 30 points. They would play the Indiana Pacers, who has not had a great last 5 years. They would have a losing record in 2021 and 2022, and in that season, the Pacers traded star big man Domantas Sabonis for an up-and-coming young star, Tyrese Halliburton. In the next season, he would have a breakout year and average 20 points per game and 10 assists per game, making his first All-Star appearance. However, the Pacers were still not good, only going 35-47. He would have around the same stats next year, but the Pacers acquired Pascal Siakam from the Toronto Raptors. They would get into the playoffs and surprisingly make it to the Eastern Conference Finals after sneaking by an injured Knicks team in the second round. However, the Celtics would sweep the Pacers in the conference finals. During the summer of 2024, Halliburton was invited to play for Team USA for the Olympics, and he would play a total of 26 minutes in 7 games, eventually losing the backup point guard role to Derek White and not appearing in the final 2 games. He would tweet after winning the Olympics saying, "When you ain't do nothing on the group project and still get an A." And while this was a lighthearted response to this, fans still thought that Halliburton shouldn't have been on the team. People thought Halliburton was worse than players like Jalen Brunson, and according to analyst Brian Scalabrine, he thought a 17-year-old Cooper Flagg, who wasn't even in college at the time, should have been in the Olympics over Halliburton. In the 2025 season, Halliburton's stats dipped down just a little bit, going under the 20 points and 10 assists he's averaged for the last 2 years. Fast forward to the end of the NBA season when an anonymous player poll came out that voted Tyrese Halliburton as the most overrated player in the league. In an interview, Halliburton shrugged it off and said that he could care less. But he must have had a chip on his shoulder because in the first round of the playoffs versus the Bucks, Halliburton went off. The Pacers would win the first 2 games off of a 12-assist Game 1 and a 21-point Game 2 from Halliburton. The series would then go to Milwaukee when multiple times throughout the 2 games at home, the Bucks started to chant "overrated" to Halliburton.
Kind of eliminates the kick out.
However, the Bucks were getting smoked. Damian Lillard went down with an injury and he will be out for all of next year. And if the Bucks lose the series, Giannis Antetokounmpo will ask for a trade, and the Bucks will have a horrible future moving forward. But this didn't stop the Bucks fans from the overrated chant. And in an elimination game, Game 5, Halliburton would make them pay. The Bucks would make it an interesting game, taking a 103-101 lead with around 30 seconds left. With the Bucks having possession, Kevin Porter Jr. misses the dagger, giving the Pacers one last possession. They gave the ball to Halliburton, who uses his handles to get past both of them with ease, making the game-tying dunk, sending it to overtime. The Bucks would have a 7-point lead with just under 40 seconds left, and Andrew Nembhard would make a 3, and the Bucks would turn it over. Halliburton would drive to the rim, getting an and 1, cutting the lead down to 1. However, the Bucks had another possession, and they would make a costly turnover, giving the Pacers a chance to send the Bucks to Cancun in possibly Giannis' last game in Milwaukee. And with Giannis guarding Halliburton, he would drive to the basket, getting by 2 other defenders, lay it up, and it went in. Pacers fans went crazy. Halliburton jumped up onto the announce table and celebrated with all of the other Pacers fans. And after the game, he tweeted 2 words: "Overrate that." Now they would face the Cavaliers, who were favored to win the series. But in Game 1, it was the Pacers that got out to an early lead throughout the first half, spreading the ball on offense and getting a lot of transition points too. In the third quarter, the Cavs would make it interesting as they took the lead and it would go back and forth. But late in the fourth, the Pacers would pull away, getting a convincing 121-112 victory. Halliburton would continue to show how good he is in the clutch as he had 9 points, which was 40% of his total points in the fourth quarter. However, in the next game, he might have had the most clutch performance in his career. In Game 2, the Cavs were down 2 starters, Evan Mobley and Darius Garland, as well as DeAndre Hunter. However, this wouldn't stop the Cavs, as Donovan Mitchell went off. Mitchell would have 21 points in the first half, ending it on this poster, and Halliburton would only have 8 points in the first half. And feeling confident, Cavs fans started chanting "overrated" when Halliburton was at the free throw line at the end of the first half.
Jarris Walker comes in for Rick Carlisle. Siakam sits.
Donovan Mitchell, probably knowing what Halliburton did after the overrated chants in the Bucks series, told the crowd to quiet down. And at the start of the first half, it was the Cavs that got off to a strong start, with Donovan Mitchell playing great along with the other players on this team. The Cavs lead eventually got up to 20. However, in the fourth quarter, Haliburton would make the Cavs pay for their chance at the end of the first half. He came out of nowhere and blocked Sam Merrill's pass and threw the ball full court to Bennedict Mathurin for an easy bucket. On defense, the Pacers made an adjustment to focus in on Donovan Mitchell, and he started struggling, and the Pacers slowly started chipping away at the deficit. It was a 6-point Cavs lead with a minute and 30 left to play. Haliburton had 2 easy buckets as he drove to the rim, but the Cavs just kept making shots, and there was a 7-point lead with 50 seconds left. On Pascal Siakam's free throw miss, Aaron Nesmith gets the rebound and slams it down. On the next possession, Donovan Mitchell commits an offensive foul, and on the other end, Pascal Siakam makes it a 2-point game. On the Cavs inbound, Max Strus throws a horrible pass that got intercepted by Andrew Nembhard. He passes it to Haliburton, who is one-on-one with Ty Jerome. He drives to the basket and draws a foul on Donovan Mitchell. Haliburton makes the first free throw. However, he would miss the second one, and it would get tipped by Myles Turner, and Haliburton jumps up and grabs the rebound over 2 bigger defenders, gets himself out of the trap of the Cavs defenders, and goes back to the 3-point line, calls an ISO, and it's just him one-on-one with Jerome. He dances for a few seconds, steps back, and he hits this 3 and hit this celebration as the Pacers shocked the world by overcoming a 20-point deficit in Donovan Mitchell's 48 points and going up 2-0 against the best team in the East. This series would go to Indiana, and the fans were really excited to see Haliburton in the playoffs coming off of his game winner. However, Haliburton would struggle, only getting 4 points the entire game, and Mitchell's 43 points and Darius Garland's return from injury would carry the Cavs for a dominant 126-104 victory. But keep this in mind for later, as in the third quarter of this game, Obi Toppin throws a high pass to Bennedict Mathurin, and DeAndre Hunter, trying to make a play on the ball, hits Mathurin hard, drawing a foul. Mathurin, upset about this, started chirping back at Hunter. The ref hears what was said, and to prevent further incidents from happening, calls a double technical foul. Nothing happened after this between the two players for the remainder of the game because of this call, but another altercation happened in the next game. In the first quarter of Game 4, on an inbound, Mathurin lightly punches Hunter in the midsection and backs up, and Hunter, who has had enough, approaches Mathurin and shoves him to the ground. Myles Turner sees this and comes to Mathurin's defense and shoves Hunter from the side. Turner and Hunter would get double technicals which offset, but this little move from Mathurin was enough for a flagrant 2. If this was just a push-off, this would have been fine, but the ref said because he closed his fist, that was enough for a flagrant 2. Not the shove, not the side check, but this little bit of contact was enough for an ejection. But the Pacers offense kept rolling, and they had a 41-point lead at halftime, sat all of their starters in the second half, and cruised to a blowout victory. Now it's Game 5 in Cleveland, down 3-1. The Cavs needed to win this to stay alive. And they came out strong, getting up to a 19-point lead in the middle of the second quarter. However, this lead would get erased after 5 threes in the span of 4 minutes to cut the lead to 4 at halftime. And Tyrese and the Pacers would use this momentum in the third quarter, going on a 17-2 run, and have gone on a 55-24 stretch in the last 18 minutes of basketball at the end of the third quarter. However, the Cavs kept it close again after Donovan Mitchell came alive after suffering an injury earlier in the game, and this 3 would cut the lead back to 1. And Haliburton would respond with a block, fast break all the way down the court and making his way to the hoop for an and 1. Down by 6, Mitchell draws the foul past the arc and has 3 shots and has a chance to cut the deficit in half. And he misses not 1, not 2, but all 3 of his free throws. And Myles Turner made this dagger 3 as Haliburton waved goodbye to the Cleveland crowd as the Pacers shocked the world by beating the best team in the East. The Pacers beat the best team in the East, but the Cavaliers weren't the best team in the league. That was the Oklahoma City Thunder. After a breakout year last year, the Thunder hadn't missed a beat, going 68-14, getting the 1 seed in the West easily, and were 16 games ahead of the Rockets, who were in second. They have a ton of young stars on this team, such as Lou Dort, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, and most importantly, their MVP candidate, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. he has averaged 32 points, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds per game, and has had 4 50-point games this season. They would be playing the Denver Nuggets, who doesn't have a lot of depth. They have 3 good players in Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, and Michael Porter Jr., but are not reliable stars to win playoff games around. And their 6'11 starting center is super unathletic, can't guard small, quick guards, can't jump, has one of the ugliest jump shots you've ever seen, and likes horse racing more than basketball. But this player is also the best player in the league. Nikola Jokic has been on a tear recently, making 7 All-Star games, winning 3 out of the last 4 MVPs, leading the Nuggets to a championship in 2023, and winning Finals MVP. And this year, Jokic is right in the MVP race, averaging a triple-double with 29 points per game, 12 rebounds per game, and 10 assists per game. It was a 2-man race for MVP between Shai and Jokic, and the winner of this would take home the MVP trophy. In Game 1, it would be the Thunder who struck first, getting out to a double-digit lead in the second quarter. After the Nuggets' continued struggles, Jokic seemed visibly frustrated with his team during a timeout. While jockeying in transition, Chet Holmgren started holding Jokic's hands. An aggravated Jokic didn't like this, so he proceeded to shove Holmgren off of him a little too much. They called Jokic for his 4th foul. He got even more mad and had to go to the bench. And usually during Jokic's absence, the Nuggets started doing horrible. But someone stepped up, and that was Russell Westbrook. He scored 10 points in just a 4-minute span against his former team to cut the lead to 5 heading into the 4th quarter. But then the Thunder jumped out to a double-digit lead, and Jokic picked up his 5th foul after elbowing Lou Dort, but he stayed in the game. And with 5 fouls, this didn't stop Jokic from being aggressive.
Jokic is 12 of 26 from the field, backs in, and scores on the interior. It's against Hartenstein. Jokic, bullseye!
And with this 3 from Jokic, the lead was cut to 1. They would trade blocks, and with 15 seconds left, the Nuggets had to foul, and Shai made both free throws to make it a 3-point game. And the Nuggets needed a stop on defense. And a miscommunication allowed SGA to get maybe the easiest bucket of his career. Aaron Gordon gets fouled and makes them both. Chet Holmgren gets fouled, and with a chance to put the game away, he missed them both. Christian Brown would get the rebound, pass it to Russ, who would pass it to Gordon, and with 4 seconds left,
9 seconds, they're down by 1. Gordon, got it!
He would hit the game-winning 3, and the Nuggets would steal Game 1 from the Thunder. However, in Game 2, the Thunder would respond in pure domination. They would have a 24-point lead after the first quarter, setting a franchise record in leads after the first quarter. They had a 31-point lead at halftime. They scored 87 points in the first half, tying the all-time playoff record. And down by 38 towards the end of the third quarter, Nikola Jokic was furious, and he channeled his anger onto the Thunder players. He would run through Lou Dort after a 3, and on defense, he jumped on Jalen Williams, and they both fell down. And he might have just wanted an end to this game as he fouled out after hitting Lou Dort on a screen. And the Thunder would cruise to a 43-point lead off of SGA's 34 points. However, in the next game, SGA would not do well. He only had 10 points in the first 3 quarters. However, the Thunder kept rolling. They had the lead for the majority of the game, and it was a 3-point game going into the 4th quarter. And what Shai is great at is delivering in the clutch. And as the Thunder needed him most, he vanished. He only had 3 points in the 4th quarter, but the Thunder kept it close and it went back and forth. They were up by 3, and with 40 seconds left, and with SGA still struggling, the Thunder still trusted their star player, giving him the ball and a chance to score the dagger, putting the Thunder up 5 with 40 seconds to go. He missed. On the other end, Aaron Gordon, who's been incredibly clutch in the entire playoffs, hit this 3 to tie it. But the Thunder had 1 possession left to score. They gave the ball to SGA and waited till the clock was down to 3 seconds left, drove right, shoots a floater for the game, and misses, making the game go to overtime, where the Nuggets would dominate. They would go on an 11-2 run in overtime. The Thunder would only score 2 points in the entire period, and in the 4th quarter and overtime, Shai would have a combined 3 points. While leaving the game to go to the locker room, Shai would just smile, and receiving a lot of backlash from the media and fans. According to Shai, Nuggets fans were chirping him when he left the arena, and he didn't want to show that he was mad, so he just smiled his way to the locker room and said, quote, "It's easy to taunt when you're up." The past 3 games of this series have been high scoring, but in Game 4, neither team could score. Each team was absolutely abysmal on offense, with Denver going 0 for 14 from 3 and 2 for 22 overall in the first quarter. And the Thunder didn't do much better, only scoring 17 points in the first quarter. And both teams combined for a total of 25 points, tying the record for the lowest scoring half since the shot clock era. It was close throughout the whole game, but the Nuggets would jump out to a lead late in the third, and down by 8, somebody stepped up in the fourth quarter. It wasn't SGA, not Holmgren, not Jalen Williams, not even Alex Caruso, but Cason Wallace. The Thunder would go on an 11-0 run, and on defense, they decided not to guard Russell Westbrook. And he got some of the most wide-open looks you could ever have from deep, and he bricked all of them. And coming off of his rough Game 3, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander erupted. He had 9 points in just a 2-minute span. However, the Nuggets kept it close, and with 30 seconds left, down by 6, the Nuggets had a chance to make it a one-possession game. They gave Jamal Murray the ball, and he was wide open, and he airballed, giving the Thunder the Game 4 win, ending this historically bad game. So far, SGA would be having a better series as Jokic had an underwhelming game in Games 2 and 3. And in Game 5, Jokic would come back strong, and Jokic would have 22 points in the first half, which is around a third of the team's points. Jamal Murray would have a good third quarter, scoring 13 points as well, and the Nuggets would have a pretty good lead. However, Jokic was still upset. Jalen Williams has Jokic tangled up, and an upset Jokic just runs like a madman with Williams on him, picking up a foul. Up by 7, the Nuggets had a chance to go up by 10 as Jokic would pass it to a wide-open Westbrook, and he would hit nothing but air. This would start a spree of his teammates doing absolutely nothing to help the Nuggets. Michael Porter Jr. had 2 points and went 1 for 7 from the field and 0 for 5 from 3 and had 30 minutes of playtime. Christian Braun went a miserable 2 for 8 from 3 and 3 for 12 from the field. The entire bench had a combined 10 points, and Jokic continued to carry his team. He was the only player on his team that scored a field goal in the first 11 minutes of the fourth quarter, and he would come up big in the clutch, making this basket over 4 defenders and hit this floater over Chet Holmgren and chucked up this ridiculous 3 to tie the game. Jalen Williams, however, would respond by hitting a 3. And with a chance to tie, Michael Porter Jr. got a good look from deep and bricked again. Shai would hit a 3-ball to put the Thunder up by 6, and with 40 seconds left, the Nuggets needed a 3, and with Michael Porter Jr. the only one open again from beyond the arc, Jokic passes him the ball, and he completely airballed. The Thunder would go on to win despite Jokic's 44 points because the rest of his team minus Jamal Murray didn't do anything. In an elimination game, that being Game 6, Jokic would continue to carry his team, getting 29 points and 14 rebounds, while Michael Porter Jr. did just as bad, going 2 for 5 from 3 and 4 for 9 from the field, only scoring 10 points. Aaron Gordon had 5 points, going 2 for 7 from the field, and while the rest of the team did better due to good performances from Murray and Brown, they were still outscored 109 to 104 by Oklahoma City. That is without Julian Strawther, a player who only averages 9 points and 1 assist per game, came into the game late in the third quarter, and as the team went through a shooting slump, he erupted. The Nuggets would go on a 10-0 run, and Strawther would have 15 points in only 20 minutes, leading the Nuggets to a Game 6 victory. That means this series would have to go to a Game 7, and both SGA and Jokic have been even this series, and with the jury still out on who the MVP is, it was all up to this one singular game to decide MVP. It was Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets who started out strong, getting out to a double-digit lead early in the first quarter. Then they would sub Russell Westbrook in, and the Thunder's defensive game plan changed. They put another defender on Jokic and allowed Westbrook to be completely unguarded from deep, and this worked. Jokic was toned down as he got smothered by the OKC defense, and Westbrook continued to shoot bricks. Jokic would only have 20 points, which isn't horrible, but if you take into account that nobody else could do anything on this team, this wasn't good. And on the other end, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander dominated. He would have 35 points, going 12 for 19 from the field and 3 for 4 from 3, securing the Thunder a spot in the Western Conference Finals after a dominating 125-93 victory. And after this performance, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander won MVP.